All right, welcome to what has become part two of this lecture on Old English morphology. In the last one, we talked about noun phrases and substantives. In this one, we will be talking about verbs. Verbs are sometimes called action words. That's only sometimes true. Verbs can also express states of being, like sleeping or resting, not actions. Or you can have linking verbs. I am nice, I seem nice, I look nice, I become nice. Those are all linking verbs. They don't really express an action or a condition on their own. So let's talk about the Old English verb. Once again, we have King Alfred there, and I just wanted to point out that he's holding this tray of circle things. Now, I'm not sure, I'm not an art historian, so I've got two guesses here. One is that these are communion wafers because he was a very devout Christian. The other is that these are the burnt cakes referred to in the story about how when he was hiding out in the marshes, the fens on the run from the Danish invaders, that he stayed with an old lady who didn't recognize him and asked him to tend to the hot cakes that were cooking on a pan. And he was, very intellectual and absent-minded, and he forgot, and he burnt the cakes and was scolded for it. This is one of my favorite things about the Netflix series, The Last Kingdom. And no, this is not promotional content, though they can pay me if they want to. One of my favorite things about The Last Kingdom is that this scene from the Chronicles with the burnt cakes is in it. It's set in like early medieval England. It's good stuff. It's, nota bene, note well. It is pretty R-rated, so if it's not family friendly content, there's gore and sexuality, and a lot of Viking accents as well. Yeah, destiny is all. Okay. Anyway, let's start with the verb. The Old English verb. There are two kinds of Old English verbs. There were strong verbs and there were weak verbs. And this is still true of English to this day. This is a feature that has remained. Strong verbs are verbs that change their vowel in the stem. So, for example, I buy, I bought. I bring, I brought. I see, I saw. I surprise, I surprised. Wait, no, that last one is a weak verb because the stem doesn't change. It just adds the dental or alveolar ending. Ed. I walk, I walked. Now, weak verbs do not change stem according to the tense. Strong verbs do. These are this distinction is a feature that survives to present day English, and is one of the things that people who are learning English as a second language have to learn. Which are strong verbs, just kind of arbitrarily. You just have to remember which they are and hope you get it right. Strong verbs in modern English are also no longer what's called a productive morpheme. This means we're not making new strong verbs, although some people around here in the Ozarks do sometimes, it seems to me. But although no, those are actually really archaic strong verbs that have dropped out of general usage, like I drug for I dragged. All right. Anyway, strong verbs in Old English had a kind of regularity to them. They were productive. You could make strong verbs. There were 7 classes of them. This chart on this table shows the 7 classes: beat on, bite, flay on, fly, spring on, spring, come on, come, yef on, give, tuck on, touch, held on, hold. As you can see, they're quite similar to the modern versions of them. The longer you look at Old English, the more that when you first look at it, you're like, what is this? This is completely a foreign language, which it is. But the more you look at Old English, the more you can see the resemblances to modern English. If you were actually learning Old English, you would have to memorize all of this stuff. And you would memorize these. And then when you learned a new verb, you would learn it as like, okay, this verb is a type 6 strong verb. And so that you would know that this is how you would form the past tense, the past plural, the past participle, and so forth. The weak form of the Old English verb is like the modern old weak verb, regular. You form a past tense by sticking ede, ode, or de to the present stem. So bodoth, to wait, becomes in the past bodod. It's funny to say. In the past participle, I have waited, ich habe bodod. There are other forms that we can derive from the verb too, and these are called verbal nouns. In modern English, we have participles, like what a participle is, like seen. Or watched. Let's say watch. A watched pot never boils, right? That watched is a participle because it's a verb that's been turned into an adjective modifying pot. The watching person is aware. Then that's a different kind of participle. That's the present active participle. And in modern English, the present active participle watching looks the same as the gerund watching. But a present active participle and a gerund are different because one is an adjective and one is a noun. It's a gerund if you just say, like, I like watching. That sounds weird. Or watching is fun, or have you tried watching, right? That's a gerund because you're just talking about the activity, you're naming it, it's a noun. But if you're talking about, those people watching over there, then it's a present active participle. In Old English, they also had something which we do not have in modern English, which was an inflected infinitive. If you've studied Spanish and you know hablar or comer, that ER ending or that AR ending is an inflection. It's a verbal, and it's an ending indicating that form of the verb is the infinitive. That is, it has no person, number, or tense or mood. It's just, again, it's used in various ways that are different than the gerund, but it's the infinitive, right? In Old English, there was also an inflected infinitive, but it was always used in combination with the preposition to. Now, the Old English, I'm going to say one other thing about the Old English here, and I don't have a slide for this, but you can find information in it in Van Gelderen. The Old English had a much more widely used subjunctive mood of the verb, which means that every verb was conjugated not only in an indicative form, but also in a subjunctive form. And the subjunctive form is generally the form that is used in subordinate clauses. A lot of modern European languages still have a subjunctive. French, German, Spanish all have a subjunctive, and it's used often in expressions like, I hope that they come, right? Modern English, the subjunctive is like 99.9% extinct. Like, you could say something like, there's a few cases where it survives. I hope that she is nice. Is not the subjunctive form. I hope that she be nice, right? That be there, come what may. I don't know. There's a few minor examples of the subjunctive in modern English, but it's almost gone. And when you use it in speech, it sounds a little like you're being very formal, like you're officiating a wedding or something like that. So that's the Old English verb. Was there anything else I wanted to say about it? Oh, here's a fun fact about the Old English verb. There is no future. There is no future tense. The modern English future tense is actually a compound tense formed with what has become the modal auxiliary will. I will do it. He will do it. But there is no future tense in Old English. You just have to kind of work out whether it's present or future in context. So there's no future in Old English. Do what you will with that. Anyway, thank you for joining me for this last little part here. That's it for morphology. Next video, which we're going to get into next week, is syntax, or how do these words fit together to make meaning. And we're also next week going to look at the effects of Old English on the effects of intercultural contact on Old English. How is Old English affected by Old English speakers being near speakers of Brittonic, the Celtic language spoken in the British Isles, or by being near Norse speakers, or by the fact that you had a whole bunch of people who were educated in Latin. So we're going to learn a little bit more about intercultural contact with Old English. We're going to learn about Old English syntax, and we're going to learn a little bit about Old English literature and some of its distinguishing features too. So all you lit majors might be excited about that. All right. See you next week. Bye.